to spec your project at the beginning, know everything's going to happen, or is that probably good enough, or is it going to change and maybe change substantially over time? It looks like about 85% of you think it's going to probably change. And 15% say, no, it's probably, you could probably do it. Anybody want to argue one side or the other of that?
I would say it would change because very rarely are you right the first time.
So very rarely are you right the first time. A lot of it depends on if you are an expert in the domain area, right? Now, how often, as the developer, are you the expert in the domain area? In fact, I find developers are usually so far from experts in the domain area they create crap. As you can see if you've ever used the University of Utah's web system. That being said, there are probably cases where you could spec something. Well, anyone want to take the blue slice? Anyone wants to blue slice it? Yes?
I was there for the red, but I mean, with the red one, like maintenance is a phase of the project. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people probably play League of Legends. It's a 10-year-old game. It's been changed every couple of months for 10 years.
Right. So I guess the question though is, I don't know League of Legends, but has there been like huge UI changes? Massive. So I might even say that's like a different game. Of course, I always know that whenever there's a game that people change dramatically, usually the player base gets in a huge uproar. Okay, and then let's see what people said on the other thing. I was hoping this would be more straightforward. Everything about anything can be taught in a finite amount of time. So if you ever see a question that sort of implies everything, has the word everything in it, you probably should be thinking, that seems excessive, because it turns out that there's no way to cover everything in web architecture in 30 lectures. You can cover a lot. We cover a lot about a tool. We will cover a lot in this class, but there are always going to be things that we don't get to, things that are going to hopefully be explained to you by your future self. Okay, let's go back and start talking about today. So today we're going to talk more about ASP user roles. We're going to talk about a little about email and maybe some C# ASP tricks. So I wanted to bring up this. A lot of you have a learning outcome. And as we've said in our previous assignment, the course ID needs to be associated with the learning outcome. And, all right, well, so what is the course ID? What is the course ID? What data type is the course ID? It's an integer, right? And so this thing that I have up on the screen, let's go to a different screen, is certainly not a course ID. So let's take a look at this. Learning outcomes. I guess I need to log in, so let's hope this still works because I've been playing a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, I logged in. Okay, so here I want to create a new learning outcome, and you can see that the default, a very easy way to do this is just to have a box where I type in the number for the course ID, right? So that's straightforward, it works. It hits, sort of the checkbox of making this thing work. Okay. But I hope that we can all agree that something like a pull down is a better choice. Now, as the user of this system, I'd probably come to you and say, in fact, I demand that there's a pull down here because it's so much better than having to find the ID integer. And then I would be absolutely right? This is the best thing you could possibly do. Anyone, so back to the first clicker question. Can anyone see any problem with this pull down? Yeah, the far back.
What if it's like really, really long? You have to like scroll.
Yeah, what happens once I've gone through 1,000 courses? Then the pull down becomes terrible, right? Or at least very cumbersome. So what's a better choice then?
Autocomplete.
Autocomplete. So there are search boxes. It turns out that this is a known problem. And so you can dump all of your things into a searchable text where you can start auto-completing and it will find those things for you. Okay, anyway, this was fine. That was better. how would you go about getting to that, from this to that? And I wanted to see if we could do that. So let's go look at the right spot in our code. So we go to our Solution Explorer, and we go into the Create. So I'm going to go find my admin roles, and there's the controllers, and there's the learning outcome controller. So in the Create, so let's find Create. Right here, all it does is the default view and dumps it back. But what I want to do is I want to turn my list of IDs from the actual database into a list of courses. And the syntax looks like fun. Let's put this in and talk about it as we do. So an enumerable items equals, I'm going to look in my database context, and in my database, I'm going to look at the courses table, and I want to use this nice select thing. Now, select gives us this really powerful way to transform our data. So how many of you have seen this notation, lambda equals new thing? Some people? If you haven't seen it, this is really powerful because it allows you to get rid of all that typing stuff that's in constructors. Forget typing. We're just going to on the fly create our stuff. Now, if you know exactly what you're doing, it turns out that's sort of a nice way to go. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be problematic. But since we do know what we're going to do, we are going to search for every course, and we use C as our course variable. And inside this new select item list, I'm going to say the text is going to be equal to the, let's see, what do we have? The long name of the course, and the value equals the course ID. And then I'm going to turn this into a list because that's what's going to be required later on. Okay, so what I've done is I've searched the database. I've searched the database. I've grabbed all the courses out of it, and now I'm creating a select list item because that's what those pull downs are called, select list items. And every item needs the text you display and the value that you want to be underneath it. So we go back and look at this view. Every one of these has a text to display, like discrete structures, but beneath the scenes or underneath the covers is an integer that's been associated with it, the value. So once we've created this list of things, I'm going to put it into my view data hash table so that it can be kept for me, so that it can be sent to the view, and then all I have to do is update the view. So let's go look at the view. Solution Explorer, views, learning outcomes, create. And I'm going to come down where I find course ID. And so here's course ID, and as a value, this is not a very exciting way to do it. It doesn't give us a nice pull down. So we're going to change it. Instead of being an input, we're going to use a select. It's the course for course ID, and get rid of these type things. And then once we have the select, we are going to say ASP-items equals at value. Well, what's that at value? I just wanted to grab the value, bar value. I could have done this all in line, but I sort of like to spread things out. View, data, courses. And now it's complaining that it doesn't like the data types, and so I'm going to cast this because as a programmer, I already know that I did this right. I hope enumerable select list item. That's funny, it's trying to do interesting application for me. All right.
Capital HD.
All right. And then if I run this, we can hopefully cross the fingers, because every live demo is, as you know, likely to fail. We will be able to see where before we had a simple place to put an integer in. we now have a pull down menu that doesn't work. So I didn't need to stop it. Okay, so someone do a quick scan of this code and tell me what I typed wrong. So div class form group, label, controller, select ASP4 course ID, class equals control.
No, that's right.
Well, that's right. Class equals ASP4, there's no class here. And then,
Do you need to close the select tag?
oh, we need the options.
Is that?
Well, then you change that to the wrong name.
Mm-hmm. Does that not matter?
Yeah, options would have to come after.
Hmm.
Inside the select.
There you go.
And then in here we need option, disabled, selected, equals, selected. Value equals nothing. Please select. And you know now know why people cut the paste when they're doing this thing. Options.
Oh, it's option.
Okay. So
You can close the select tag.
it keeps auto-selecting stuff for me, and then auto-populating stuff. All right, I think I got it right. As always, the good news is once you get it right once, you can cut and paste it when you need to do it again. Well, let's see it now. So you update, create, please select, and there they are. There's all the options. So again, what's the point there? So you don't have to do a pull down menu, right? There are lots of options you have. But what I'm looking for is that you think about the design, you say, how would I want this to user, and then choose what is probably, okay, good, and excellent, and try to choose something that is a good or excellent solution, even if it takes a little bit extra time to do it. So it's just an example of one thing that you could have done slightly different or better. It's not, again, not required. You can certainly get a decent grade. You get B's or above. You get B's by doing what's the basic requirements. But I do want to push you to try to, think outside the box. Come up with some neater stuff. Add more stuff in as you go. All right. Here's another example. So I wanted to go to my list of learning outcomes. What's wrong with this list?
Real quick on the previous example.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, I was under the impression that course instances were, instances, so they're unique. Here we're using like the long name, which I don't know if in this database is actually unique. So this seems like a flawed tactic for them to actually apply to the course instance.
Right, so it's a very good point. So this is just a quick example of getting the menu, pull down menu, but next year there'll probably be a course called Web Software. So you really need to have CS-4540 Spring 2014 Web Software in this list. Absolutely. Okay, so someone was going to tell me what's wrong with this. Yeah, what's wrong with it?
The line spacing makes it look ugly.
Okay, yeah, so there's some graphical things wrong with it, but there's something even worse wrong with it. Yeah.
It's messy.
Why is it messy?
It's not sorted.
It's not sorted, right? So there's a learning outcome here that deals with the web class, and then there are learning outcomes up there that deal with the web class. Now, the question is, how do you fix that?
You do the sorting.
Did anyone fix it? So you fixed it?
Yeah, you do the sorting in the back end before you split it out. With you.
Okay, so you could sort it, right? You sort in the back end was the suggestion here. Also turns out, yes.
I was gonna say add some buttons so that the user can choose how to sort it.
Right. So this is also a very good suggestion, except I would not go with add buttons. I would throw this into a data table. If you don't know what a data table is, it's a table that has buttons on it that allows you to sort things, right? So you just throw your data into a JavaScript library that makes a very pretty sorted table already for you. But since we don't have the data table and you don't always know if that's going to work, it would be nice if this was sorted. How much work is it to make this a sorted list?
You just have to implement like comparator function in the model and then just press sort whenever you call.
So let's go back and look at our code base. So this is the index page for learning outcomes. So I'm going to go to learning outcome and look at the index page here. So that's not the index page. There's the index page. So as you've all done before, this just asks for the database to give me all of the learning outcomes. And so what was suggested is that our learning outcomes should have a comparator in them, which is great. But if you'll remember a long time ago, I said you're a full stack developer, which means you have access to the database. You understand databases. What do databases do things? They usually sort things because they need to be fast. So if the database has sorting, then we're good to go. So the only way to, if the database had sorting, you could do something perhaps like, I don't know, you could say dot order by, and you could say order by name. So if the database had ordering and that worked, then that one extra line of code would reduce this problem that we saw before. And let's see if it does. Okay, so here's the old view, and here's the new view. And now all the web items are put together. Right. So another example of a nice little tweak. It doesn't take much effort, but it shows a little bit more mastery. It makes things just a little bit better. Thanks to me. All right, assignment 4. So in assignment 4, we need to make sure that there's a relationship between the courses and the instructors. Let's see, do I have that showing anywhere? Let's go look at the admin pages, courses. Yeah, so in the database I've been showing, the instructor has an instructor ID. Well, when you create users, because that's what the whole PS4 is about, users, you somehow need to associate a user with one of those IDs, right? How do you want to do it? Suggestions. There's a database table almost right there. What do you want to do to it? All right, we have a volunteer, Brady.
Course can get, the course table can get professor ID, so each course is associated with one professor.
Well, this is it. This is the course table, and it does have the ID. So already there. So what else do we need? I mean, we need users, right? Yeah, right.
Are we talking about a table that would map like a instructor ID to a name to like then the user roles?
Yeah, so yeah, we need something. We could have a table that basically says course ID 1 is associated with user Jim, and course ID 2 is associated with user Professor Mary, and course ID 3 is associated with user Professor Danny. We need something like that, yes.
Can you just make the instructor ID on this table the foreign key of the user ID?
So, well, perhaps we don't need a complete other table. Why don't we just make this the name of the instructor? So, for example, this would be Professor Jim, and this would be Professor Danny, and this would be Professor Mary. Certainly a viable alternative. But you're going to have to choose one of those alternatives. Let me show you another alternative. So, well, here are the three options. So the course instructor column contains the email address. We have another table. Those are the two that we've already discussed. And And then there's the I ran out of time, and Jim's not going to really look at my code fix. So this is basically what that would look like. You basically write a function that says, hey, if I happen to see the email of Professor Jim, that instructor ID is 1, and you just hard code this into your system. And because you set up all the courses and you set up all the users, it's just going to work, right? So why would I ever show you something as ugly and terrible as that?
You've seen it?
What?
You've seen it before?
Well, I've seen it before. I did it because I ran out of time. You see, that's why it's called I ran out of time fix. I ran out of time to actually put the new table in, and I want to have my code work. I want something that I can deliver, and I just throw this in my code. Now, how long is it going to actually take me to replace the I ran out of time fix with either a table or update the other table? How long is that update going to take? I mean, you've been doing this stuff. How long is it going to take you to create another table? Seconds, minutes? Come on, someone realistically say, I think an hour and 2 hours I can get this up, right? So yeah, I would say that you should be able to create that new table in less than an hour. You should be able to modify the old table in less than an hour. Those should both be within a realm. How long does it take to throw this garbage up? Like 5 minutes, right? So it's a question of time. If you're running out of time, you do something like jump like that. Otherwise, you do it correctly and you use a table to represent the information. Now, one thing, does anyone see any differences between creating a new table that relates users to instructors versus just putting it into the course table? I don't have a clicker question for this, but I'll ask. Raise your hand if you think just put the email into the course table instead of the ID. Who thinks that's a good idea? No one thinks that's a good idea. How many people think creating a new table that just has the email and the ID associated is a better idea? This is probably a better idea. It's going to take you 30 minutes instead of an hour. This one will take you 15, well, actually, this one will take you the hour, this one will take you 30 minutes. So, right, again, it's sort of a priority, how much time you have, what's the right answer. Okay, any questions on that, this relationship? Everyone understand that? Sure.
So just to clarify, in the courses you have an instructor ID. So why doesn't that ID, like the person in front said, why doesn't it become a foreign key to the user table? The user table also has an ID, right?
Yes. Let's look. I think it's usually easier to look at these things. So let's go and look at the SQL Object Explorer, and we're going to look at the users table, so view data. And so there is for every user, all the professors, etc., there is the ID. So there is an ID. And then if we look at the courses, view data, there is also an ID. So the only challenge then is to either put the IDs here or, yeah, putting the IDs here would be pretty straightforward. Now again, the question becomes, is there ever a case where, so often, by the way, in SQL, this is not a class on SQL and tables and stuff, so we're not going to, you can do it either way. But often as your table gets more and more columns, as you add more and more data, what are you going to find? You'll find that you replicate data or that you have blanks. So for example, let's say no one is teaching web software. No one's been set to do it. So there's no one here. No one in that spot. What's going to happen when I try to save this data? Is it okay to have a blank in my number column? Usually not, no, right. So here's an example. If you have a table that relates the two, and there's no one teaching it, what goes in the table? Nothing goes in the table. If no one's teaching a course, you don't need anything in the table because the table says who is teaching a course, and no one's teaching it. Nothing goes in the table. So here's a problem. If no one's teaching a course, we have a blank in our table. So again, for our purposes, either one would work, but the separate table is better.
What roles are allowed to see this table?
What's that?
What roles are allowed to see this new instructor user table?
What roles are allowed to see the list of all users?
Yeah.
Only the admin role. No one else can see all the users. Okay, I want to show you another example of how we can use permissions. So this is using my associated instructor ID. So I've not saved the ID in my database, so I've just hard-coded it. And I want to, for example, I want to go to the following. So let's go back to, let's run our program. And I'm going to log in as myself. So log out Aaron. I'm going to now log in Professor Jim. And I'm going to see my courses. And there are the two courses that I'm teaching. And I'm going to click on one and see what's in course number 1. And then I realize, hey, look at this URL up here. There's a number. I wonder what happens if I put a second number in there. Oh, look. Here is someone else's course that I have just snuck into. I can now see everything that they did because the URL allows me to see any course. Well, why is ASP.NET authorized? Why is it not stopping me? No, I'm logged in as an instructor.
It doesn't really.
Because it's not taking roles.
What is the protection on this table? So I gave you very simple instructions. Everything that the instructors can see, what role is this protected by? Instructor. Am I an instructor?
Yes.
Therefore, I should be able to see everybody's classes. Well, in ASP.NET, absolutely. But that's not what we want, right? We want to protect it so that one professor cannot see another professor's class. So how would we go about doing that sort of thing? Turns out that it's fairly straightforward. We go to our controller, Solution Explorer. We're looking for instructor controller. So there's our instructor controller. And we come down and look for the course controller. Oh yeah, I'm using Razor here. So here's the course Razor instructor. And so like I said, rather than build my own table, I'm just using my jump thing to get an ID of the instructor. And now I want to do the following. I want to protect it. So how can I protect from including courses that are not mine? Well, here's one way. So here I'm looking up the course with the given ID. And I could say something like, and the course, what does the course have that I'm interested in? It has an instructor ID is equal to, oops, not course ID, is equal to instructor ID. So now I just added it, says, hey, only grab courses where not only is the ID correct, but the instructor's ID is correct. So when I run this and try to go do that magic, what's going to happen? No ideas? Blank empty page. All right, well, let's go. So I'm logged in. I want to go see my courses. I click on a course, and then I change this to a different number, like 2. I don't know, right?
Only the wrong place.
Let's go ahead and
That's the
debug our code. So let's go back and reload this. Here we are, and we will step over. The instructor ID is 1, and we want to find every course where the course ID is equal to 2, and the instructor ID is equal to 1. Oh, wait, I am teaching 24/20. Now, is that what we really want? We want to say this page is not found when someone tries this. It's possible. You could certainly imagine putting a nicer thing up saying, caught you, you thief, you're trying to sneak into someone else's course, and just popping a message up like that. So, that would probably be nicer than a is not found. One other thing that many of you probably did not do, but let's say if I go to course number 10. By the way, how many courses are there? I think there are 4 or 5. So when I do this, oh, course not, that's good. Oh, I already did that. Thinking of it. So, by the way, you see this, if the course is null, that means no course existed. So I already put a null.